Hey there, it's me Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the description. Mom had a point. It was only 8 o'clock. So Victoria just shrugged her shoulders and grabbed my elbow and led me back upstairs. I guessed that I was to be subjected to yet another outfit for dinner, but it was just the same as before. The stretchy red pants with 2 zippers and suspenders and all that came with it, the frilly socks and little buckle shoes and the camisole, except that this time, Victoria gave me a different blouse to wear, a soft yellow one with long full sleeves and pleats in the front and a straight stand-up collar. After dinner and the usual hour and a half of TV, it was time for sleep. I was put into the blue sleep set I had modeled earlier that evening and went off to bed. My sleep was bothered by the strangest dreams. There I was, in school, and Ms. Rohrbaugh was my teacher. She was explaining to me that I could earn back points by wearing this pair of lacy ankle socks, so I put them on. Then gradually, I was getting into more trouble and needed more and more assistance with my behavior, but I didn't know what I had done to deserve punishment. But then it occurred to me that it was because I wasn't wearing the socks properly, or the hair ribbons, or the panties. So I required more and more special clothing to assure my compliance with the rules until, finally, I had to be humiliated by wearing a short frilly white dress with red polka dots and matching bloomers. And the special frilly underwear was too easily visible to the other kids, who laughed and laughed. Oh, the shame! I awoke, the sleep set drenched in sweat, and try as I might, I couldn't get back to sleep until just before dawn. I tossed and turned, the sleep set pulling this way and that across my body, fitting me in a way that I was not used to, an ever-present reminder that I was in trouble. I must have looked awful when Mom came in to wake me up, because she said for me to go back to sleep, and that it was okay to miss school that day, and that she would get someone to stay with me. When I awoke, the sun was bright in the sky. I walked out of my room, down the hall to the bathroom, still dressed in the lace-trimmed sleep set. Then I heard a woman call, "Robin? Are you awake, dear?" "Yeah," I said. As I peed, I heard her coming up the stairs. I realized that I was still dressed up like a little girl. I couldn't let the babysitter see me like this. Frantically, I tried to pee faster. In a moment, she reached the top of the stairs. As she walked down the hall, I shook off the last drops and had just managed to start pulling off the shorts when she just came into the bathroom without even knocking. I could have died on the spot. "Well, Rob, your mom was right. You certainly are cute." It was Mrs. Beechwood, one of Mom's friends from work who had just returned from the hospital after a long illness. I could have died on the spot, standing there in the little frilly sleep set top with the bow tied around my neck and the shorts around my ankles. "Your mother asked me to come by and look in on you today, so here I am." I moved quickly to untie the bow, but in my haste, I accidentally made the knot tighter. Now I was really stuck. I made for my room, but it was not easy to run with sleep bloomers around my ankles, and old Mrs. Beechwood wouldn't let me pass anyway. She grabbed me around the waist and picked me up over her hip, and with amazing swiftness brought her fat hands down hard on my bare butt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in rapid succession. It was enough to make me cry. "Now, Robert, that is no way to behave," she thundered. "If you are really sick, you had better go straight back to bed. So put your little pants back on and march back to the bedroom." I did as I was asked. Mrs. Beechwood pointed to my sister Victoria's room and said, "Go in." Then I saw what had been laid out on the bed. It was, of course, flowered cotton panties and a white vest with a little bow in front. It was a pink overall and a white blouse. The overalls had no fly and were printed with thin white stripes and clusters of flowers. The blouse had a frilly rounded collar and buttoned in the back. I couldn't bear to think that I would have to go through the day in that. So I slammed the door in Mrs. Beechwood's face, and as she howled down the hall to the bathroom, I scrambled to escape. Racing back to my room, I ripped off the sleep set and hurriedly put on my school clothes. My own school clothes, thank you, and split for school as fast as I could. It only dawned on me as I approached the quiet school that I had made a terrible mistake. Now a school full of kids seems to be a very quiet place at about 9:30 in the morning. That's because all of the kids are sitting in classrooms. So a child alone walking to school is conspicuous at that hour, and being that child, I realized that I was, yes, in trouble. I was in trouble with my mom and my mom's friend for my bad behavior. I was in trouble with my sister just like I had been pretty much since the day I was born. Worst of all, I was in trouble with the dreaded Ms. Rohrbaugh. I was definitely going to be losing points this time, and earning them back would be no picnic. So I turned around and ran as fast as I could away from school. Unfortunately for me, I had been detected by Mr. Denmark, the principal, as he looked out the window at precisely the wrong time. His voice soon echoed in my ears, "Boy, get back here this instant. Obey at once, do you hear?" I heard all right and turned around and put wrong foot after wrong foot all the way back to the school. Mr. Denmark was waiting for me, and his expression wasn't totally angry. He actually smiled and patted me on the back as he escorted me to the office, asking me my name and what I was doing. Of course, there was no way I could explain myself. What was I doing? Going to school? But I had been running away from school. Oh, I had been sick but felt better? Yes, my mother had called the nurse. Oh, I see. Well now, Robert, don't worry. School is a fine place and we want you to like it here, and here you are, not sick, but just a little late. We can let it go. Now let's just get you back to your class. At this moment I felt like Batman, trapped in the Penguin's vacuum chamber, the air being slowly sucked out, weak, helpless, doomed. But as we walked down the hall a different image entered my mind, the image of a boy about my age in a frilly dress, walking stiffly across the stage in the multi-purpose room to be photographed. I almost had to stop. Finally we arrived at the classroom. Mr. Denmark stepped in and motioned me along. Terrified, I went straight to my assigned seat, while Mr. Denmark had a word with Ms. Rohrbaugh. I caught sight of Johnny Lawrence in his little psychedelic good boy a bow tie, and felt like crawling under my desk. What terrible punishment would befall me? Ms. Rohrbaugh took control of the class again, saying that she would deal with me later, and I tried to catch up and follow the lesson for that morning. After about half an hour, she gave the class a short writing assignment. As I began to write, Ms. Rohrbaugh approached. The fawn-like tooth seemed particularly white under the harsh fluorescent light of the classroom, and she said, "Well, Robert, it looks like we're off to kind of a bad start this year, aren't we? Come on to the back of the room. We have to have a little talk. I will not tolerate lateness or absence in my classes without excuses from home. I am taking 3 points from you this time. Next time it will be 6. Do you understand?" "Yes, but I had an excuse from home," I said. "That's not what Mr. Denmark said. Shall we go down and see him again, Robert?" I knew I was licked. I followed her up to the front of the class where she made her announcement. Standing behind me, she said, "Class, Robert was late today and has been docked 3 points. He will have the opportunity to earn back 2 of the points tomorrow and Thursday, but in order to earn back a point for today, he will stay in at recess and for the rest of the day will wear the lace of lateness." With that, she reached into her desk drawer and produced a wide silk ribbon trimmed with lace. I looked back over my shoulder and saw it, white with small blue dots and florid with frills. That is going on me. Oh God, the shame, I thought as my mouth involuntarily opened wide and the blood burned hot in my face. I could do nothing as Ms. Rohrbaugh leaned over and tied the ribbon securely around my neck, taking a moment to tie a large proper bow. I bent my head meekly and the bow brushed against my chin as I returned to my seat. At recess, I had to stay in the classroom with Ms. Rohrbaugh while everyone else got to go and play. I had achieved a sort of pariah status, getting in trouble 2 days in a row, coming late to school, being absent from play after school. I also felt like I was the victim of a terrible plot to turn me into a total sissy. So I was totally surprised when Ms. Rohrbaugh actually asked me the comforting question, "Robert, are you all right?" I confessed the truth to her, that I felt awful, that my sister had forced me to stay dressed in the red pants, and had even put a frilly blouse on me too, and that my mom was punishing me by letting my sister dress me for the week, and how I'd heard the story of Ray Little, and the other stories about how mean Ms. Rohrbaugh was, and how I hated having points. By the time I finished, I was nearly in tears. Ms. Rohrbaugh smiled. "Well, Robert, it certainly has been an eventful couple of days. It would be hard for anyone to face what you've been facing. Robert, do you think I'm being too hard on you? Answer honestly." I couldn't answer. Either a yes or a no seemed like it could lead to more punishment, so I just bowed my head and looked down at the floor. "Well, Robert, if you make rules and you don't enforce them, then those rules are not good rules. If there were no punishment for breaking the rules, then everyone who wanted to would break them. So I don't think I'm being too harsh. If anything, I have been harsh enough on you." Despite the fact that her words spelled certain pain to me, and my head seemed to be spinning, I could hear the wheels spinning in my head as I considered how she would find a way to punish me. "Robert, what is the thing you like least about the lace of lateness?" she asked. I had no answer ready, but she looked at me stubbornly while I tried to say something. I simply couldn't think of any one reason to say why I hated the lace. Finally, I just said it's just so girly. I don't like to wear it. It would be better if it were more plain. No, I don't think so. I think if it were plain, you'd hate it just as much, Robert, she said, brushing her hand under the large bow, which brushed lightly against my cheek. I think that the idea of this bow is the thing that you hate. You like to feel free from control, don't you? You like to play with your friends and be free of adult supervision, don't you? I gravely nodded, sensing the truth of what she said. She continued, "Robert, these are difficult days we live in. It's so very easy for a kid to slip up and fall in with the wrong crowd. Now I am going to be certain that it doesn't happen to you. You will bear the punishment I put on you for lateness without complaint, and you will not fall in with the wrong crowd." I didn't understand at all what she meant. What did wearing this lace thing have to do with falling into the wrong crowd? What was so difficult about these days? Ms. Rohrbaugh explained, "You see, dear, it's not that the lace is girly, no, not really, no girl would wear something like that unless her mother made her do it, it's sissy. And nobody really likes to hang out with a sissy. You know that. Nobody wants to be so close to someone so controlled by other people. And that's what I mean about control. Your mother, your sister, and I are going to keep you under control for a while, just to make sure that you live your life in a proper, civilized fashion." And she smiled an evilly chilling smile, and the light glinted off of her fawn-like tooth, as she sensed what I was feeling. Sheer terror. Sheer terror which deepened even more when I realized what was happening. The sleepless night, the morning's excitement, having to stop in the middle of my morning's pee, the terror of it all combined. My brain went crazy, and most unfortunately, I lost control of my bladder. There was no mistaking what was happening. A stream of warm urine flowed down my leg. Ms. Rohrbaugh laughed inwardly, knowing that her stern words were having their desired effect. With mock surprise, she exclaimed, "Oh, Robert! Are you having an accident?" I couldn't help it anymore. I didn't want to cry, but I couldn't stop myself. The strain of the moment was just overwhelming my 9-year-old sensibilities. How unfair and embarrassing and confusing the situation. How furious and ashamed and weak I felt. Please subscribe my channel for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.